5 years. That was how long Connor had managed to stay a ghost. She traded her designer heels for scuffed sneakers and her freedom for a grease-stained apron in a nowhere town. She thought she was safe. She thought he had forgotten her. But when 3 black SUVs boxed in her rusty sedan outside the diner, she knew her time was up. He walked in, wearing a suit that cost more than the building, and the air left the room. But he wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the 2 small children clinging to her legs, children with his steel-grey eyes. The Mafia Don had just found his heirs, and he wasn't leaving without them. The bell above the door of Sal's Greasy Spoon didn't just chime. It clattered, a rusty, tired sound that matched the soul of the establishment. Connor wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead with the back of her wrist, pushing a stray lock of dark hair out of her eyes. She smelled like old frying oil and maple syrup, a scent that had permeated her pores over the last 5 years. "Order up on table 4, Connor. Stop daydreaming," Sal, the owner, barked from the pass-through window. He was a good man, despite his gruff exterior. He was the only one in this god-forsaken town of Oakhaven who hadn't asked for ID when she begged for a job 5 years ago, pregnant and terrified. "Coming, Sal," Connor replied, her voice steady. She grabbed the 2 plates of eggs and bacon, navigating the narrow aisle between the vinyl booths. It was a Tuesday, usually a slow morning, but the lunch rush was starting early. The diner was filled with the usual suspects: truckers hauling timber from the north, locals gossiping about the mayor's affair, and tired parents trying to silence screaming toddlers. It was mundane. It was safe. Connor dropped the plates at table 4, forcing a smile for old Mr. Henderson. "Coffee refill, heavy on the cream." "You know me too well, darling," Henderson winked. Connor turned to head back to the counter, checking her cheap plastic watch. 12:15 p.m. The school bus dropped the twins off at the corner in exactly 5 minutes. Her heart did that little stutter it always did around this time. Anxiety, love, fear. The triad of emotions that ruled her life. She walked to the window, looking out at the grey asphalt of the parking lot. It was raining, a dreary drizzle that made Oakhaven look even more depressing than usual. That's when the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't a sound, it was a sudden lack of it. The conversations in the diner didn't stop all at once, but they dampened, like a radio volume being turned down. Heads turned towards the window. 3 SUVs. Massive, black and pristine, sitting in the lot like predatory sharks in a goldfish pond. They were Escalades, with tinted windows so dark they looked like voids. They took up 6 parking spots. Connor's tray slipped from her fingers. The crash of ceramic shattering on the linoleum floor was deafening. "Connor, what the hell?" Sal shouted. She didn't hear him. Her blood had turned to ice. "No, it's not possible. I was careful. I used cash. I never used my real name. I have no digital footprint." The door of the lead SUV opened. A man stepped out. He was huge, built like a tank, wearing a dark raincoat. Connor recognized him instantly. Silas, the head of security, the man who broke fingers as easily as snapping breadsticks. If Silas was here, he was here. Connor backed away, her sneakers crunching on the broken plates. She needed to run. The back exit. Through the kitchen, out the alley, over the fence. She could get to the corner before the bus. She could grab the kids and run into the woods, but her legs wouldn't move. It was like a nightmare where the ground turns to quicksand. The diner door opened. The little bell clattered, sounding like a death knell. Silas held the door open. And then Jack Moretti walked in. 5 years hadn't softened him. If anything, time had carved him into something sharper, harder. He was wearing a charcoal 3-piece suit, tailored to perfection, hugging broad shoulders that carried the weight of the entire East Coast underworld. His hair was darker, cut shorter, and his face. God, that face. High cheekbones, a jaw that looked like it was chiseled from granite, and eyes the color of a stormy sea, cold, calculating, and currently scanning the room with the precision of a predator. The diner went dead silent. Even the truckers knew danger when it walked through the door. This wasn't local tough guy danger. This was international danger. Jack's gaze swept over the counter, the booths, and then locked onto Connor. She stopped breathing. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He just stared, his expression unreadable, a mask of terrifying indifference. He took a step forward, his Italian leather shoes making a distinct clack on the floor. "Connor," he said. His voice was low, a smooth baritone that vibrated through her chest. It wasn't a question. It was a claim. "You have the wrong person," she whispered, her voice trembling. "My name is Sarah." Jack tilted his head slightly, taking another step. He was 10 feet away now. "You could change your name to the Queen of England, amore, and I would still know the shape of your fear." He reached into his jacket pocket. Half the diner flinched, expecting a gun. Instead, he pulled out a folded photograph. He tossed it onto the nearest table. It was a picture of her, taken from a distance, hanging laundry in her backyard 2 days ago. "Did you think you could run from the Cosa Nostra?" Jack asked, closing the distance. "Did you think I wouldn't turn over every stone on this earth to find what belongs to me?" "I don't belong to you," Connor hissed, finding a spark of courage in her terror. "I paid my debt. I left." "You left without saying goodbye," Jack said, stopping just inches from her. He smelled of sandalwood, expensive tobacco, and rain. It was a scent that used to comfort her. Now it terrified her. "And you took something." "I took nothing," Connor lied, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Money can be replaced, Connor. Betrayal cannot." Just then, the back door of the diner burst open. "Mummy! Mummy, look!" The sound of children's voices pierced the tense silence like a knife. Connor's eyes widened in horror. She spun around. Leo and Mia tumbled into the kitchen, their backpacks bouncing. They were 4 years old. They had skipped the front entrance and come through the delivery door, as they always did, to get a cookie from Sal. "Mommy, Leo pushed me in a puddle," Mia cried, holding up a muddy sneaker. "Did not. She tripped," Leo argued, his voice fierce. They ran out from behind the counter, skidding to a halt when they saw the strange man standing in front of their mother. The silence in the diner was heavy, suffocating. Jack Moretti froze. For the first time, the mask slipped. His eyes, those cold, steel-grey eyes, widened. He looked down. He saw Leo, with his messy dark hair and a defiant scowl that mirrored Jack's own. He saw Mia, clutching a stuffed rabbit, watching him with wide, curious eyes. But it wasn't the hair. It wasn't the skin tone. It was the eyes. Both children had heterochromia. One eye was a deep, rich brown like Connor's. The other was the exact same shade of stormy grey as Jack's. A genetic marker so rare, so specific, it was like a signature written in DNA. Jack looked at Leo, then at Mia. Then he slowly lifted his gaze to Connor. The air crackled with violence. The look on his face shifted from cold calculation to something much more volatile. Shock, disbelief, and then fury. "Sarah," Jack said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper, using her fake name like a curse. "Who are these children?" Connor stepped in front of them, shielding them with her body. "They're mine. Just mine. Leave, Jack, please." Jack ignored her plea. He crouched down, ignoring the dirt on the floor, ruining his suit trousers. He was eye level with Leo now. "What is your name, little soldier?" Jack asked softly. "Leo," the boy said, puffing out his chest, not scared at all. "Who are you?" Jack stared at the boy. His son. He saw the chin, the nose, the fire in the eyes. He stood up slowly, towering over Connor. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "You stole $5 million from the syndicate account," Jack said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear, though it was clearly a lie to cover the real issue. "But that is petty theft compared to this." He gestured to the children. "You stole my blood. They are not yours," Connor screamed, panic taking over. "Silas," Jack barked, not looking away from Connor. The massive security guard stepped forward. "Boss?" Close the diner, Jack ordered. Everyone out, now, except for her. You can't do that, Sal shouted from the kitchen, wielding a spatula. I'm calling the police. Jack turned his head slowly toward Sal. Call them. The chief of police in this county is on my payroll. By the time they get here, this place will be ashes. He turned back to Connor. Sit down. We have 5 years of catching up to do. The diner emptied in under a minute. It was amazing how quickly curiosity vanished when faced with the barrel of a gun, or in this case, the mere presence of Jack Moretti. Silas stood by the front door, flipping the sign to closed and pulling the blinds. 2 other men, suited and silent, stood guard by the kitchen entrance. Connor sat in the booth, her hands shaking uncontrollably in her lap. Leo and Mia were sitting opposite her, eating chocolate chip pancakes that Jack had ordered Sal to make before kicking the old man out. The children were oblivious to the danger, thrilled by the unexpected treat and the nice man who bought it for them. Jack sat next to Connor. He was too close. His thigh brushed against hers, sending a jolt of unwanted electricity through her body. He hadn't touched her yet. Not really. He was just watching the children eat, his expression unreadable, his coffee untouched. They have your appetite, Jack murmured, watching Leo demolish a pancake. They have allergies, Connor said, her voice brittle. No peanuts, no shellfish. I know, Jack said. He pulled a file folder from inside his jacket and slid it across the table. Connor stared at it. What is this? Medical records? Birth certificates? Fake ones? Listing the father as unknown? School report cards? Jack tapped the folder with a manicured finger. I've known where you were for 48 hours, Connor. I spent the first 24 verifying if you were alone. I spent the last 24 wondering why I shouldn't kill you for running. You were going to kill me anyway, Connor snapped, keeping her voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. 5 years ago. I heard the phone call, Jack. I heard you tell your brother that I was a liability, that loose ends needed to be cut. Jack turned to her, his brows knitting together. Is that what you thought? It's what I heard. You heard a fragment of a conversation you didn't understand, Jack growled. I was talking about a rat in my organization, a woman named Sophia who was leaking info to the Russians. Not you. Connor felt the blood drain from her face. What? I came home that night to propose to you, Jack said, his voice devoid of emotion, but his eyes burning. I found an empty apartment, a ring box on the counter, and my bank accounts accessed. I didn't take your money, Connor insisted. I took $5,000 cash from the safe for a bus ticket and a motel. That's it. I didn't touch the accounts. Jack studied her face. He was a human lie detector. It was how he survived in his world. He looked for the twitch of an eye, the pulse in the neck. Connor was terrified, yes, but she wasn't lying. Someone drained $5 million from the offshore holdings using your access code the night you left, Jack said. I assumed you ran with the money. I didn't, she whispered. I just wanted to save my babies. Jack looked back at the twins. Mia was wiping syrup off her chin. She looked up and caught Jack staring. She smiled, a shy, crooked little thing that broke his heart. Are you a giant? Mia asked. Jack blinked. The ruthlessness in his face softened for a fraction of a second. Some people think so, Piccola. My mummy says giants are just lonely people who grew too big, so others would notice them, Mia said matter-of-factly. Jack looked at Connor. A ghost of a smirk played on his lips. Is that so? Eat your pancakes, Mia, Connor said, her face flushing. Jack leaned in, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper again. Here is the situation, Connor. You left. You hid my children. You made me believe you were a thief and a traitor. In my world, the penalty for that is death. Connor gripped the edge of the table. If you hurt them, I don't hurt children. Jack cut her off, especially not my own. But you are on thin ice. What do you want? I want them, Jack said simply. They are Morettis. They belong in the estate, with protection, with the best schools, with their family, not in a roadside diner in the middle of nowhere. You want to take them? Connor rose halfway out of her seat. Over my dead body. That can be arranged, Silas said from the door, his voice bored. Shut up, Silas, Jack snapped without looking back. He turned his full attention to Connor. I am not going to kidnap them, Connor. That is messy. It traumatizes them, no. We are going to do this civilized. Civilized? Connor scoffed. You're the head of the New York Mafia. Exactly. Which means I have resources, lawyers, judges. I can prove paternity in an hour. I can have you declared an unfit mother. You're working under a false identity, committing tax fraud, and living in a substandard apartment. I can take them legally, and you will never see them again. Connor felt sick. He was right. He held all the cards. Or, Jack continued, leaning back and spreading his arms along the top of the booth. You come with us. Connor blinked. What? Pack your things. You and the children are coming back to New York. To the estate. I'm not being your mistress again, Jack. Not mistress, he corrected. Hostage. Until I find out who really stole that $5 million using your codes, you are a suspect under house arrest. You will be close to the children. You will care for them. But you will not leave the grounds. And if you try to run again... He let the threat hang in the air. Connor looked at Leo and Mia. They were laughing now, playing with the sugar packets. If Jack took them, they would be raised by wolves. They would become like him. Cold, violent. Unless she was there to protect them. Unless she was there to remind them of the light. I need time to pack, she said, her voice defeated. Silas will pack for you, Jack said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. You have nothing in that trailer park dump that I cannot replace with better quality. Connor's head snapped up. How do you know I live in a trailer? I told you, Jack said, extending a hand to Leo. I know everything. Come on, little soldier, Jack said to the boy. Do you like fast cars? Leo's eyes lit up. Ferrari? Better, Jack smirked. Armored Escalade with a PlayStation in the back. Leo scrambled out of the booth. Mia followed, clutching her rabbit. They didn't look back at the diner. They didn't look at the life Connor had built from scratch. They just looked at the shiny new future. Connor stood up, her legs feeling like lead. She walked towards the door, Silas falling in step behind her. One more thing, Jack said, pausing with his hand on the doorframe. He didn't turn around. The man who stole the money. He knows you're alive now, too. My tracking of you. It might have set off some alarms. What does that mean? Connor asked, a new wave of fear washing over her. It means, Jack said, looking at the grey sky, that you are safer with the devil you know than the demon you don't. Get in the car, Connor. As Connor stepped out into the rain, she saw the third SUV idling. The window rolled down. A woman was sitting in the back seat, blonde, severe, wearing a headset. She looked at Connor with pure hatred. It was Eleanor, Jack's sister-in-law, the widow of his late brother. And suddenly, Connor realized that the family reunion was going to be much deadlier than she anticipated. The drive from Oakhaven to New York was a study in claustrophobia disguised as luxury. The interior of the Escalade smelled of fresh leather and the faint metallic scent of ozone from the air purifier. It was silent, save for the hum of the tires on the wet highway and the digital blips of the game console Leo was already addicted to. Connor sat pressed against the door, watching the trees blur past. Every mile marker was a seen chain link, pulling her back into the world she had fought so hard to escape. Jack sat in the middle row with them, his long legs stretched out, reading emails on a tablet. He seemed relaxed, but Connor knew better. She saw the way his eyes darted to the side mirrors every 30 seconds. She saw the way his hand rested near the inside of his jacket, where she knew a custom Beretta rested in a shoulder holster. Are you a bad guy? The question hung in the air, innocent and sharp. It was Leo. He had paused his game and was staring at Jack with serious, mismatched eyes. Connor stopped breathing. "Leo, don't—" Jack held up a hand to silence her. He locked eyes with the boy. "Why do you ask that, Leo?" "Mummy says men in suits who drive big cars are usually trying to take things that aren't theirs," Leo recited. Jack turned his gaze slowly to Connor. She refused to look away, lifting her chin defiantly. "I told them the truth about the world." "The world is complicated, Leo," Jack said, turning back to his son. "I am a man who protects his family. Sometimes, to protect the sheep, you have to kill the wolves. Does that make the shepherd a bad guy?" Leo thought about this, scrunching his nose in a way that was so painfully similar to Jack, it made Connor's chest ache. "No. Wolves are mean." "Exactly," Jack said. He reached into the mini-fridge console and pulled out a glass bottle of sparkling water. He twisted the cap off with one effortless motion and handed it to Connor. "Drink," he ordered softly. "You look like you're going to pass out." Connor took the bottle, her fingers brushing his. The contact burned. "Where are we going, Jack? Specifically?" "The Westchester estate," he replied. "The penthouse is too exposed. The estate has walls, guards. It is a fortress." "And who else is there?" Connor asked, dread pooling in her stomach. She remembered the blonde woman in the other car. "My mother passed last year," Jack said, his voice void of emotion. "It is just me, the staff, and Victoria." Victoria. The name sent a shiver down Connor's spine. Victoria was the widow of Jack's older brother, Luca. Luca had been the heir, the cruel one, the one everyone feared. When he died in a boating accident 6 years ago, Jack had taken the throne. Victoria had remained at the estate, playing the grieving widow, but Connor knew the truth. Victoria was a viper in designer silk. She had always hated Connor, the lowly waitress Jack had fallen for. "Victoria is still there," Connor whispered. "Jack, she hates me." "She is family," Jack said dismissively. "She manages the household. You will stay out of her way, and she will stay out of yours." "You're delusional if you think that," Connor muttered. 2 hours later, the convoy slowed. They turned off the highway onto a private road lined with ancient oak trees. Massive iron gates, emblazoned with the Moretti family crest, a lion holding a dagger, swung open automatically. The estate came into view. It was a sprawling Gothic revival mansion, all grey stone, turrets, and ivy. It looked beautiful and terrifying, looming against the darkening sky. "Whoa!" Leo and Mia whispered in unison. "Is this a castle?" "It's home," Jack said. There was a strange note in his voice. Pride, or perhaps resignation. The SUVs pulled into the circular driveway. A team of staff was already waiting, standing in a perfect line under the portico. Umbrellas were snapped open the moment the doors unlocked. Connor stepped out, clutching Mia's hand. The air here was different, richer, cleaner. Standing at the top of the stone steps was Victoria. She looked immaculate in a cream-colored cashmere dress that probably cost more than Connor's entire life earnings. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her blue eyes were sharp as diamonds. Jack walked up the steps, carrying a sleeping Leo who had dozed off in the last 10 minutes. "Welcome home, Jack," Victoria said, kissing his cheek. Her eyes immediately flicked to the child in his arms. Her smile faltered for a microsecond before plastering back into place. "And guests." "Not guests, Victoria," Jack said, his voice booming slightly so the staff could hear. "Family." Victoria's gaze shifted to Connor. The hatred was palpable, cold and slimy. "Connor, you look... well, the rustic life seems to have agreed with you." "Victoria," Connor nodded, tightening her grip on Mia's hand. "And who are these?" Victoria asked, looking at the twins with feigned politeness. "This is Leo," Jack said, shifting the boy's weight. He gestured to the girl hiding behind Connor's leg. "And Mia. They have..." Victoria paused, staring at Mia's eyes. Interesting eyes. They have my eyes, Jack corrected, his tone leaving no room for argument. Prepare the east wing. The nursery needs to be reopened. The east wing? Victoria stiffened. But that's right next to your quarters, Jack. Surely the guest suites in the west wing would be more appropriate for privacy. The east wing, Jack repeated, stepping past her. I want them close. As Jack walked into the grand foyer, Victoria leaned in close to Connor. The scent of her expensive Chanel perfume was overpowering. I don't know what game you're playing. Bringing bastards into this house, Victoria hissed, her voice low enough that only Connor could hear. But if you think you're going to get a ring on your finger because you dropped a litter, you're mistaken. I run this house. Connor looked at the woman who had once made her life hell. 5 years ago, Connor would have cried. But Connor had waited tables for truckers who tried to grope her. She had raised twins alone on minimum wage. She was tougher now. I don't want a ring, Victoria, Connor replied coldly. I want to survive. If you want to fight, take it up with Jack. I'm just here for the kids. She brushed past Victoria and followed the man who held her fate in his hands. The East Wing was larger than the entire apartment complex Connor had lived in for the last 5 years. The nursery, which had presumably been Jack's when he was a child, had been transformed in record time. Silas had apparently called ahead. There were new beds, piles of toys that looked untouched, and a wardrobe filled with clothes in the twins' sizes. It was a cage, but it was a very comfortable one. For the first 3 days, Connor barely saw Jack. He was a phantom, leaving before dawn and returning after midnight. She assumed he was dealing with the business, the shipments, the unions, the laundering, the parts of his life she used to pretend didn't exist. She spent her time hovering over Leo and Mia. The twins, however, were adapting with frightening speed. They had discovered the indoor heated pool, the cinema room, and the chef, Marco, who made them anything they wanted. They were forgetting the struggle. They were forgetting the diner. On the 4th night, the illusion of peace shattered. Connor was in the library, a massive 2-story room filled with books she used to love reading when she stayed here years ago. It was 11 p.m. The kids were asleep. She was wearing a silk robe she had found in her closet, her old closet. Jack had kept her clothes. That realization sat heavy in her chest. She was looking for a phone, a landline, anything to call Sal and tell him she was okay. Jack had confiscated her cell phone for security reasons. She found a vintage rotary phone on a mahogany desk in the corner. She picked up the receiver. Dead air. The lines were cut or controlled centrally. Looking for a way out? Connor spun around. Jack was standing in the doorway. He had discarded his jacket and tie. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal muscular forearms, covered in faint scars and tattoos. He looked exhausted and dangerous. I just wanted to call my boss, Connor said, replacing the receiver. He probably thinks I'm dead. Silas paid him a visit, Jack said, walking into the room. He went to a crystal decanter and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. He gave him $50,000 to cover your abrupt resignation and the damages to the diner. Sal is currently planning a retirement in Florida. He is fine. Connor felt a flash of anger. You can't just buy people off, Jack. In my world, you can buy anything, he said, handing her a glass. Drink, it's bourbon. You used to like it. Connor took the glass but didn't drink. I'm not the same girl, Jack. No, he agreed, stepping closer. The air between them crackled. You're harder, wary. It suits you. Why am I really here? She asked. You know the kids are yours. You've seen the DNA tests by now. Why keep me prisoner? The investigation into the missing $5 million is complicated, Jack said, taking a sip of his drink. He leaned against the desk, crossing his ankles. My forensic accountant traced the IP address used to drain the funds. It originated from a device registered to you. That's impossible, Connor said. I don't even own a computer. I use the library PC. 5 years ago, Jack corrected. The night you left. The transfer was authorized by your biometrics, your fingerprint. Connor shook her head, confused. But I was packing. I was crying. I didn't touch a computer. I know, Jack said softly. Because at the exact time the transfer happened, the security cameras showed you getting on a bus at the terminal. Connor stared at him. So you know I'm innocent? I know you didn't click the button, Jack said, but someone used your credentials. Someone who had access to your tablet. Someone who wanted you gone and wanted me to hate you. Victoria, Connor whispered. It was the only explanation. Victoria doesn't have the technical skill, Jack countered, though his eyes showed he had considered it. But she has allies. I kept you away to lure the real thief out. They think you're the scapegoat. Now that you're back, they will get nervous. They will try to finish the job. So I'm bait, Connor said, her voice rising. You brought me and the children here to be targets. I brought you here to be guarded, Jack snarled, slamming his glass down. The sound echoed in the library. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, grabbing her upper arms. His grip was firm but not painful. Do you think I would let anyone touch a hair on their heads? On your head? He was breathing hard, looking down at her. His eyes searched hers, desperate and angry. I looked for you, Connor, he confessed, his voice breaking. Every day. For 5 years. I didn't care about the money. I tore the city apart. When I thought you were dead, I almost burned New York to the ground. Connor's breath hitched. She saw the raw pain in his face. The love she had tried to convince herself wasn't real. You scared me, Jack, she whispered. Your life scared me. I didn't want my children to grow up visiting their father in prison or a morgue. So you stole them from me instead? I gave them a normal life. You gave them poverty, Jack shouted back. Leo told me he's never seen the ocean. He's never been on a plane. He didn't know what a steak tasted like until tonight. He knows he is loved, Connor yelled, pushing against his chest. He knows his mother is there every night to tuck him in. Can you promise that? Can you promise you won't be shot in the street tomorrow? Jack went silent. He looked at her hands on his chest. His expression softened. He slowly covered her hands with his own. No, he said quietly. I cannot promise that. But I can promise that as long as I breathe, no one will ever hurt you again. He leaned down. His face was inches from hers. Connor knew she should push him away. She should run. But her body betrayed her. She leaned in. Crash. The sound of glass breaking came from the hallway. Jack instantly shifted from lover to killer. He shoved Connor behind him, drawing a gun from the waistband at the small of his back. A gun she hadn't even known was there. Stay here, he ordered. He moved to the door, silent as a cat. He peeked out, then lowered the weapon. It's just a vase, he called out, but his voice was tight. Connor peered around him. In the hallway, a Ming vase lay shattered on the floor. Standing over it was Victoria. She looked pale, her hand clutching her chest. I'm sorry, Jack, Victoria stammered. I was just coming to check the locks. I startled a cat. It knocked it over. We don't have a cat, Victoria, Jack said, his voice like ice. Victoria froze. Her eyes darted to Connor, then back to Jack. A stray. It must have gotten in through the terrace. Jack holstered his gun. He walked over to Victoria, stepping over the shards of porcelain worth more than a car. He stopped right in front of her. You seem nervous, Victoria. Nonsense, she said, smoothing her dress. Just the storm. It's making me jumpy. Go to bed, Jack commanded. And Victoria, if I find out you were eavesdropping... I wouldn't dream of it, she said quickly. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking rapidly on the marble. Jack watched her go, his jaw clenched. He turned back to Connor. The moment of intimacy was gone, replaced by the cold reality of their situation. She was listening, Connor said. Yes, she knows that you know I'm innocent. Yes. Jack walked back to Connor. which means the clock just started ticking. Whoever helped her frame you, they are going to make a move. Soon. What do we do? Connor asked. Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, black object. It was a burner phone. Keep this on you, hidden, on vibrate. If I tell you to run, you grab the kids, and you run to the panic room in the cellar. Do not stop. Do not look back. Do you understand? Connor took the phone. It felt heavy in her hand. I understand. Good night, Connor. He walked out, leaving her alone in the library. Connor looked at the phone, then at the shattered vase in the hallway. The gilded cage was locked, and there was a snake inside with them. The following morning, the tension in the Moretti estate was thick enough to choke on. The storm had passed, leaving the grounds washed clean and glittering under a deceptive winter sun. But inside the mansion, the atmosphere was dark. Jack had left before dawn. He had left a note on Connor's bedside table, a piece of heavy cream cardstock with his sharp, angular handwriting. Do not leave the East Wing. Silas is at the door. I am ending this today. Connor crumbled the note in her fist. She hated being the damsel in the tower. She was a mother, and mothers didn't wait for permission to protect their young. She spent the morning distracting the twins. They were currently in the playroom, building a fortress out of pillows and expensive silk cushions. Leo was the commander. Mia was the dragon. It was innocent, a stark contrast to the lethal game of chess being played by the adults in the house. Around noon, a knock came at the nursery door. It wasn't Silas, it was Victoria. The woman looked flawless, as always. She wore a structured navy blazer and white trousers, her blonde hair swept back in a ponytail. She held a silver tray with a teapot and 2 cups. "May I come in?" Victoria asked, her voice sugary sweet. "I brought peace offerings, chamomile tea. It helps with the nerves." Connor stood in the doorway, blocking Victoria's view of the children. "I don't want your tea, Victoria." "Oh, come now," Victoria sighed, pushing past Connor with surprising strength. She set the tray on a low table near the window. "Jack is on a warpath. If we don't present a united front, he's going to tear this family apart. I'm not your enemy, Connor. I worry about the family legacy." "The legacy you tried to steal?" Connor shot back, crossing her arms. Victoria laughed, a tinkling, hollow sound. "You really think I'm the mastermind? Please, I'm a widow living on a stipend. I don't know the first thing about offshore accounts." She poured 2 cups. "But I do know who does." Connor hesitated. "Who?" "Sit." Victoria gestured to the chair. "I'll tell you, but only if you promise to convince Jack to go easy on me. He thinks I was complicit. I was just blind." Connor didn't sit, but she stepped closer. "Tell me." "It was Arthur," Victoria whispered, naming the family's long-time lawyer. "He's been skimming for years. He used your login because he knew Jack had a soft spot for you. He knew Jack wouldn't look too closely if he thought his heart was broken." It made sense. Terrifying sense. Arthur had access to everything. "Why are you telling me this now?" Connor asked. "Because Arthur knows Jack is close to the truth," Victoria said, her eyes widening with feigned fear. "He's desperate. He's going to try something drastic. I thought we should be together. For safety." Connor looked at the tea. Then she looked at Victoria's hands. They were trembling slightly. Not from fear, Connor realized with a jolt. From adrenaline. "Where is Silas?" Connor asked suddenly. "He's downstairs," Victoria said quickly, checking the perimeter. "Silas never leaves his post," Connor said, backing away. "Jack gave him a direct order." Victoria's smile vanished. The mask dropped, revealing the snarling face beneath. "Silas is taking a nap. A very long one." Connor lunged for the panic button on the wall, a red alarm switch Jack had showed her. Victoria was faster. She pulled a small taser from her blazer pocket. The crackle of electricity filled the room. "Don't," Victoria hissed, "or I'll use this on the girl." Connor froze. "If you touch them, I will kill you." Empty threats from a waitress, Victoria sneered. She moved towards the twins, who had stopped playing and were watching with wide, terrified eyes. "Mummy?" Leo whimpered. "It's okay, baby," Connor said, her voice shaking. "Play the quiet game, just like we practiced. Listen to me closely," Victoria said, pointing the taser at Connor now. "You are going to take the children. You are going to walk down to the garage. There is a van waiting. You get in, and you disappear. For good this time. And if I don't?" "Then I call my friends." Victoria checked her diamond-encrusted watch. "They are already at the gates. Arthur isn't the only one who wants Jack to fail. The Russian syndicate has been trying to get a foothold in New York for years. I just opened the door." Connor's blood ran cold. It wasn't just theft. It was a coup. Victoria had sold out the entire Moretti family to the Russians. "Jack will hunt you down," Connor said. "Jack will be dead within the hour," Victoria replied coldly. "He's walking into a trap at the warehouse district as we speak. Arthur sent him a fake lead." "No." Connor's heart slammed against her ribs. Jack was walking into an ambush. "Move," Victoria ordered. Gesturing to the door, Connor looked at her children. She looked at the woman holding the weapon. She needed a distraction. "Okay," Connor said, lifting her hands slowly. "Okay, we'll go. Just let me get their coats. It's freezing outside. Make it quick." She crossed to the wardrobe, opening it just wide enough to block Victoria's view. Her fingers closed around the heavy coats and the smooth curve of a wooden hanger. She turned and hurled the coat straight at Victoria's face. "Run!" Connor screamed. Victoria shrieked as the fabric blinded her. The taser discharged wildly, sparks biting into the wardrobe door. Connor lunged, slamming her shoulder into Victoria's stomach. They hit the floor hard. The taser skidded away. "Leo! Mia!" Connor shouted, grappling with flailing limbs. "Bathroom! Lock the door!" Victoria fought like an animal, nails raking Connor's cheek. "You're ruining everything!" Pain barely registered. Connor grabbed Victoria's hair and smashed her head into the floor. Once, twice, the fight drained out of her body. Breathing hard, Connor ran for the bathroom. "It's Mummy!" The door flew open. She crushed the twins to her chest, tears and terror mixing. "We have to go. We have to find Jack." The burner phone shook in her hand as she dialed. "Connor!" Jack's voice came through gunfire. "It's a trap. Victoria betrayed us. She let them in." "I know," he said grimly. "Get to the cellar panic room. Lock it. I'm coming." The call died. Connor pocketed the phone and forced a smile. "We're playing spies," she whispered, quiet and fast. They slipped into the hallway. The house felt wrong. Too silent. At the bottom of the stairs, the security panel was dead. Power cut. They were halfway to the kitchen when the front doors exploded inward. Connor threw herself over the children as armed men stormed in, voices barking orders in Russian. Assets. They meant her babies. She dragged the twins into the library and bolted the doors. "Under the desk. Don't move!" The gun cabinet caught her eye. She smashed the glass, grabbed a shotgun, loaded. The door burst open. The first man hesitated when he saw her. That hesitation killed him. The blast knocked her back, but she pumped the shotgun, screaming for them to stay back. Gunfire shredded the room. A flashbang rolled in. White light, noise, pain. Hands ripped the weapon away. A boot crushed her ribs. Through the ringing, she heard her children screaming. Victoria emerged, bloodied and wild, dragging Leo and Mia forward. 10 million for the heirs, she panted. "Finish her!" A pistol rose. Bang! The mercenary dropped. Jack stood in the shattered window, blooded and terrifying. He moved fast, shots, bodies falling. Victoria grabbed the children, knife flashing. Leo stomped her foot. Now! Jack tackled her. Connor snatched the twins and ran. More headlights flared outside. Jack knocked Victoria unconscious and pulled Connor up. "Roof, now!" Rain and rotor wash swallowed them as they sprinted. Connor buckled the kids in, then turned. Jack was still on the roof. Another traitor appeared. A flare burned red. Distraction. Jack struck. Then he ran. The helicopter lifted as bullets chased them into the sky. Inside, soaked and shaking, Connor met Jack's gaze. You fought, he said softly. I'd burn the world for them. Jack smiled fiercely. Good, because we're not running apart anymore. Underscore, 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 underscore. 6 months later, the charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art was the event of the season. The press was there in droves, cameras flashing like strobe lights. They were all waiting for one person, or rather, one couple. Rumors had been swirling for months. The elusive Jack Moretti had returned from a sabbatical in Italy. And he wasn't alone. A black limousine pulled up to the red carpet. Silas, looking as terrifying as ever in a tuxedo, opened the door. Jack stepped out first. He looked every inch the king of New York, wearing a bespoke tuxedo that fit his broad frame perfectly. He turned and extended a hand into the car. Connor emerged. A collective gasp went through the crowd. The woman who had once wiped tables in a greasy diner was gone. In her place stood a queen. She wore a gown of emerald green silk that hugged her curves, with a slit that showed off a toned leg. Around her neck sat a diamond necklace that was rumored to have belonged to Russian royalty, a subtle, ironic trophy from their victory. Her hair was styled in glamorous waves, her makeup flawless. But it was her eyes that had changed. The fear was gone. In its place was a steel-hard confidence. Jack placed a hand on the small of her back. Ready? Always, Connor said. They walked the carpet, ignoring the shouted questions from reporters. Mr. Moretti, is it true you bought the airline? Who is the mystery woman? What happened to your sister-in-law? They entered the great hall where the city's elite were gathered. Senators, judges, business tycoons, many of whom were on Jack's payroll, and many who feared him. As they circulated the room, Connor held her own. She spoke fluent Italian to the ambassador, a skill she had learned during their months in Sicily. She discussed art with the museum curator. She was charming, witty, and utterly untouchable. Later in the evening, they stepped out onto the balcony overlooking Central Park. The city lights twinkled below them. You were perfect in there, Jack said, handing her a glass of champagne. I learned from the best, Connor said, taking a sip. Have you heard the news? About Victoria? Jack asked. Connor nodded. The plea deal went through, Jack said, his voice devoid of pity. 20 years in federal prison for embezzlement and conspiracy to commit murder. Her assets have been seized and liquidated. And Arthur? Arthur had a change of heart, Jack said cryptically. He is currently managing a very small, very remote sanitation facility in Alaska. He won't be practicing law again. It was the hard karma Connor had once prayed for. The people who had tried to destroy her family were gone, erased by the very machine they tried to hijack. And the Russians? Connor asked. They have agreed to stay on their side of the Atlantic, Jack said. After I sent them the heads of their 3 top lieutenants, they decided New York was too expensive. Connor shivered, not from cold, but from the reality of the man she loved. He was a monster to the world, but he was her monster. I have something for you, Jack said. He reached into his jacket pocket. Connor expected a ring, a massive diamond to verify her status. Instead, he pulled out a set of keys. What is this? She asked. Keys to the Café on 5th Avenue, Jack said. The one you liked. I bought the building. Connor stared at the keys. You bought me a restaurant. I bought you a business, Jack corrected. It's in your name. You're the owner. No one tells you what to do. You want to cook? Cook. You want to hire a manager and spend all day at the spa? Do that. But it's yours. You earned it. Tears pricked Connor's eyes. He hadn't just given her money. He had given her back her independence, the one thing she feared losing by being with him. Thank you, she whispered. There is one condition, Jack said, his face serious. What? Free pancakes for life. For me and the kids. Connor laughed, the sound echoing over the park. I think I can manage that. Speaking of the kids, Jack checked his watch. Silas is putting them to bed. We should get back. In a minute, Connor said. She leaned against the stone railing, looking at the skyline. She thought about the diner, the smell of grease, the fear of every car that pulled into the lot, the loneliness. She looked at Jack. The danger, the violence, the power. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a darker, messier story, but it was theirs. She had kept his twins a secret to save them, but in the end, the secret had saved her. It had brought the storm to her door, and the storm had washed away the fear, leaving only strength. Connor turned to Jack, grabbing his lapels and pulling him close. "Let's go home, Jack." He kissed her, a promise of forever sealed in the moonlight. "Let's go home." And that is the incredible story of Connor and Jack. From a terrified waitress hiding in a roadside diner to the queen of the New York underworld, Connor proved that a mother's love is the most dangerous force on the planet. She didn't just survive the mafia. She tamed it. Victoria and Arthur got exactly what they deserved: cold, hard justice. And the twins? They're growing up with a father who would burn the world down for them, and a mother who taught them that strength isn't just about muscles, it's about heart. I hope you enjoyed this roller coaster of drama, romance, and revenge. If you did, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss a story.